Have you ever watched someone walk into a room and immediately command it without saying a word? They don't shout for attention, they don't perform or prove. They simply exist with such concentrated presence that everyone else becomes background noise. Thomas Shelby understood this better than most. While others talked, he calculated. While others reacted, he orchestrated. While others burned themselves out trying to control everything, he controlled the one thing that mattered most: himself. Now here's the question that should terrify you. How much of your power are you giving away right now? How many battles are you fighting that don't need fighting? How much energy are you hemorrhaging into activities that move you nowhere closer to what you actually want? There's a scene in Peaky Blinders that captures everything. Tommy sits perfectly still while chaos erupts around him. Men are shouting, making demands, threatening violence, and he just waits. Then, with a single sentence delivered in that cold, measured tone, he ends the entire confrontation. One sentence, after everyone else exhausted themselves. That's not luck, that's mastery. Because here's what nobody wants to tell you. Most of your efforts are not just wasted, they're actively working against you. You're creating noise when you need signal. You're spending energy when you need to be accumulating power. You're talking when you should be watching. And it's costing you everything. The illusion of constant action. You've been lied to about how power works. They told you that success comes from grinding, from hustling, from never stopping. They sold you the myth that whoever works the hardest wins. But Thomas Shelby would look at that advice and see it for what it is, a trap designed to keep you exhausted and controllable. Think about every powerful person Tommy faced. The ones who survived weren't the loudest or the busiest, they were the most deliberate. They understood that power isn't about how much you do, it's about how much you don't have to do because you've positioned yourself correctly. In Small Heath, everyone knew the Shelby name before they knew Tommy's face. That's strategic. He built systems, created leverage, and established presence. While others were running around proving themselves daily, Tommy had already won the game 3 moves ago. They just hadn't realized it yet. But here's the brutal truth. Busy people are easy to predict, easy to manipulate, easy to defeat. When you react to everything, you control nothing. When you're constantly in motion, you're dancing to someone else's rhythm. And when you're always available, you become worthless. Thomas Shelby's power came from scarcity. His words were scarce, so people listened. His presence was scarce, so people valued it. His decisions were scarce, so they mattered. He understood something fundamental about human psychology. We don't value what we can always have. We value what we might lose. Look at how he ran his meetings. Short, direct, no wasted words. He'd sit at the head of the table, light a cigarette, and let the silence do half the work. While others filled empty space with nervous chatter, revealing their positions, showing their weaknesses, Tommy just watched and learned, and used that information later with devastating precision. Every time you speak when you could listen, you give away information. Every time you react when you could reflect, you give away control. Every time you move when you could wait, you give away strategic advantage. You're playing checkers in a chess game, making obvious moves while your opponent positions pieces you don't even see yet. Tommy understood the economics of attention. In a world where everyone is shouting, the person who speaks quietly makes people lean in. In a world where everyone is rushing, the person who moves deliberately appears confident. In a world where everyone is reactive, the person who is strategic appears unstoppable. The psychology of strategic silence. There's a reason Thomas Shelby's silences were more powerful than most people's speeches. He understood something about human psychology that most people never learn. The human mind abhors a vacuum. When you create silence, other people fill it. And when they fill it, they reveal themselves. Watch any negotiation scene in Peaky Blinders. Tommy makes an offer. Then he stops talking. The other person, uncomfortable with the silence, starts talking, justifying, explaining. And with every word, they're giving Tommy information he can use. They're showing their hand while he keeps his cards hidden.
This is psychological warfare at its finest, but it's also something deeper. It's about understanding that power exists in potential, not just in action. A loaded gun is more powerful than an empty one, not because it's been fired, but because it could be fired. Tommy's stillness was loaded with potential. Every time he didn't react, people had to wonder, what's he planning? What does he know that I don't? Most people are constantly over-responding, trying to appear capable, knowledgeable, in control. But this over-response broadcasts insecurity. It tells everyone watching, I need you to think I'm powerful because I don't believe I actually am. Thomas Shelby never had this problem. He didn't need you to think he was powerful. He knew he was powerful, so he could afford to be still. But here's where most people misunderstand him. They think Tommy was naturally calm, naturally controlled. They missed the discipline behind it. Every time he wanted to react but didn't, that was a choice. Every time he felt anger but showed nothing, that was training. Every time he wanted to speak but stayed silent, that was strategy. The modern world has conditioned us to believe that authentic means reactive, that being real means showing every emotion. But that's not authenticity, that's chaos. Real authenticity is knowing yourself so well that you can choose which parts to reveal and when. Consider how he dealt with betrayal. Did he immediately lash out? No. He gathered information, he waited, he planned. And when he finally acted, it was total and complete. No wasted energy on impulsive reactions. Every ounce of force directed precisely where it would have maximum impact. Tommy shows us another path. Feel it fully, understand it completely, then decide strategically how and when to act on it. This turns emotion from a weakness into a weapon of precision in your own hands. If you're finding value in this exploration of power and self-mastery, take a moment to like this video and subscribe. Your engagement helps us dive deeper into the psychology of strategic thinking that can transform how you move through the world. The architecture of calculated moves. Thomas Shelby didn't make moves, he made systems. While everyone else was thinking about the next day, he was architecting the next year. While others were fighting the battle in front of them, he was positioning pieces for a war they didn't know was coming. People see the violence, the intimidation, the dramatic confrontations. What they miss is the infrastructure beneath it all. The legitimate businesses funding the illegitimate ones, the political connections providing protection, the information networks giving him advance warning, the legal structures creating plausible deniability. Every scene where Tommy appears to spontaneously solve a problem is actually showing you the result of preparation you didn't see. That phone call he makes that changes everything, he built that relationship months ago. That piece of information that gives him leverage, he paid someone to gather it weeks earlier. That split-second decision that seems like genius, he wargamed 50 scenarios before stepping into that room. This is the doing less paradox. He appears to do less in the moment because he did more in advance. But what he did in advance was strategic positioning, not busy work. He wasn't answering emails or attending pointless meetings. He was building systems that would multiply his effectiveness when the critical moment arrived. Think about how he expanded the business. He didn't personally oversee every shipment or manage every transaction. He identified key people, gave them authority, created accountability structures, and stepped back. He built a machine that ran whether he was watching it or not. That's leverage. That's how you do less while accomplishing more.
Most people can't think this way because they're trapped in immediate return thinking. They want effort today to produce results today. They need constant validation that their work matters. So they stay busy with tasks that feel productive but build nothing lasting. Tommy understood the difference between activity and architecture. Activity keeps you busy. Architecture sets you free. Activity responds to what's happening now. Architecture determines what happens next. Activity makes you necessary. Architecture makes you powerful. The key distinction is this. Reactive people ask, "What do I need to do right now?" Strategic people ask, "What do I need to position right now so that later, when the moment comes, I'm already in place?" That second question requires doing less in the moment, but thinking more about the future.
The power of calculated absence. There is a scene that perfectly captures Tommy's strategic genius. He simply doesn't show up. While everyone else is present, actively working, visibly engaged, Tommy is absent. And somehow, his absence makes him more present than everyone else's presence. People wonder where he is. They speculate about what he's doing. His absence creates more impact than most people's attendance ever could. When you're always available, you train people to not value your presence. When you're strategically absent, you create scarcity, mystery, and value. Every reappearance becomes an event. Every word carries weight because you don't waste words filling silence. Most people fear absence. They worry they'll be forgotten, overlooked, replaced, so they make themselves hyper-available. They respond to every message within minutes. They attend every meeting. And in doing so, they become furniture, expected, unremarkable, taken for granted. Think about how Tommy used this in negotiations. Sometimes he wouldn't show up to his own meetings. He'd send Arthur or Polly. This communicated several things simultaneously. His time is more valuable than yours. His representatives speak with his authority. And most importantly, you need him more than he needs you. Before a single word was spoken, the power dynamic was established. But calculated absence isn't just about manipulating perceptions. It's about actually doing the deep work that creates value. When Tommy was absent, he was often planning, strategizing, gathering information, or meeting with even more important people. His absence from the visible game meant he was playing a deeper game that others couldn't see. Tommy's calculated absences also served another function. They created space for others to reveal themselves. When the leader is always present, micromanaging every detail, people perform for the leader. But when the leader steps back, you discover who people really are, who can be trusted, who steps up, who falls apart. You cannot observe the game while you're caught up in playing it. Tommy's absences gave him perspective. He could see patterns invisible to those grinding through daily operations. He could spot opportunities others missed because they were too busy executing to reflect on whether they were executing the right things. The art of controlled revelation. One of Thomas Shelby's most powerful techniques was controlling information flow. He understood that power comes not just from what you know, but from what others don't know you know. He was a master of the strategic revelation, sharing information precisely when it would have maximum impact. Watch how he handles confrontations. Someone thinks they have leverage over him. They reveal their hand confidently, believing they've cornered him. Tommy listens, says nothing. Then, at the exact moment when they believe they've won, he reveals a single piece of information that inverts the entire power dynamic. And Tommy knew this outcome before walking into the room. In any interaction, the person who knows more while revealing less has the advantage. Most people do the opposite. They overshare, thinking that demonstrating their knowledge creates credibility. But every piece of information you reveal
is a piece of leverage you surrender. Tommy's controlled revelation operated on multiple levels. There was what he said versus what he knew. He always knew far more than he revealed. There was timing. He'd reveal information at the precise moment when it would have maximum psychological impact. And there was source protection. His information network remained mysterious. We live in an age of oversharing. Social media has trained people to broadcast their every thought, location, and emotion. We've normalized radical transparency, but in doing so, we've surrendered strategic advantage. Every time you post about your plans, you give competitors advance notice. Every time you broadcast your emotional state, you show vulnerabilities. You're not being authentic, you're being exploitable. Tommy would look at modern oversharing culture with cold contempt. The strategic approach is selective transparency. Share what serves your goals. Reveal what builds the perception you want. Disclose what creates the reaction you need. But guard everything else. Your plans, your concerns, your doubts, your strategies. Keep those protected until the moment when revealing them creates advantage. Tommy's power came from this gap between internal experience and external presentation. Internally, he processed everything, felt everything, understood everything. Externally, he revealed only what advanced his goals. This created a fortress around his true self that opponents couldn't penetrate.
The discipline of strategic patience. Perhaps the most difficult aspect of Tommy's approach is what makes everything else possible: strategic patience. In a world that demands immediate results, the ability to wait for the right moment is almost supernatural. Yet this is where Tommy's true power resided. Strategic patience isn't passivity. It's not doing nothing. It's doing nothing visible while positioning everything essential. It's the discipline of preparation without premature action. It's knowing that timing is often more important than tactics. Think about Tommy's long game with various enemies throughout the series. These weren't quick victories. They were chess matches played over seasons, sometimes years. Move and counter-move, advance and retreat. Constant positioning, minimal direct confrontation, until the moment when conditions aligned and he could strike decisively. This requires psychological strength most people don't have. We're wired for immediate cause and effect. When we exert effort without immediate outcome, we experience cognitive dissonance. Tommy had trained himself beyond this limitation. He could sit with the discomfort of incomplete action. He could invest effort without immediate reward. He could wait while others, driven by impatience, made mistakes he could exploit. Consider the difference between reaction time and response time. Reaction time is how quickly you act. Response time is how appropriately you act. Fast reactions feel good, but they're often wrong reactions. Appropriate responses require assessment, which requires patience. Tommy demonstrated this repeatedly. Someone would threaten him, and the instinctive reaction would be immediate violence. But he'd wait, gather information, understand the full situation, then respond in a way that eliminated not just the immediate threat, but the source of the threat. When everyone else is reacting in real time, thinking strategically about next week makes you a genius. When everyone else is planning for next quarter, thinking strategically about next year makes you unstoppable. The time horizon of your strategic thinking directly correlates with the magnitude of your impact. Tommy's patience also served a psychological warfare function. His opponents would make their moves, then wait for his response, and wait, and wait. The longer the silence, the more they questioned themselves. The uncertainty created by his patience was often more powerful than immediate retaliation would have been. The transformation, becoming strategically unstoppable. So how do you actually implement this? How do you transform from reactive to strategic, from constantly busy to devastatingly selective? This isn't about mimicking Tommy's specific actions, it's about adopting his underlying principles. First, audit your current state with brutal honesty. How much of what you do actually matters? Make a list of everything you did last week. Now mark which activities genuinely advanced your strategic goals. If you're honest, the percentage will be shockingly low. This is why you're exhausted without being effective. Second, identify your strategic objectives with clarity. Tommy always knew what he was building toward. What are you actually building toward? Not vague desires like success, but specific, concrete objectives. If you can't articulate these clearly, you're just reacting to whatever comes along. Third, develop the discipline of strategic patience. Start small. Next time you feel the urge to respond immediately to something, wait. Wait an hour. Wait a day. See what changes. Often, the situation resolves itself, or you gain information that makes your response more effective. Each time you choose patience over reaction, you're strengthening the psychological muscle that enables strategic thinking. Fourth, practice controlled revelation. Start monitoring what information you share and when. Before speaking, ask yourself, does revealing this serve my strategic objectives? Most people discover they've been hemorrhaging valuable information without realizing it. Fifth, engineer your absences as strategically as your presences. You don't need to attend every meeting or respond to every message within minutes. Start creating boundaries around your time and attention. This will create discomfort, but that discomfort is the price of transformation. Sixth, build systems, not dependencies. Look at your current responsibilities. Which ones only you can do? Systematically remove yourself from operations that don't require your unique capabilities. Document processes. Train others. Build systems that run regardless of your direct involvement. Seventh, protect your strategic thinking time religiously. Schedule regular periods for strategic thinking. No phone, no interruptions. Just thinking time, where you analyze your position, consider your objectives, and plan your moves. This thinking time is where you move from player to strategist. The shadow side, what they don't tell you. But we need to be honest about something crucial. This path has a cost. Tommy Shelby wasn't just powerful, he was isolated. The same qualities that made him effective made him difficult to truly know. Strategic restraint can become emotional isolation. When you're always calculating, you can lose the capacity for spontaneous connection.
Tommy struggled with this throughout the series. His strategic mind was always working, always positioning. This made him phenomenally effective in business, but damaged his capacity for intimacy, for trust, for genuine vulnerability. The lesson isn't to avoid strategic thinking, it's to compartmentalize appropriately. Have domains where you operate strategically, business, competition, negotiations, but also have domains where you allow genuine connection with family, close friends, with yourself in private reflection. The danger is that the strategic mask becomes comfortable. It protects you from vulnerability, but that protection comes at the cost of the very connections that make success meaningful. Tommy's tragedy was that his strategic brilliance in business coexisted with strategic failure in protecting his own humanity. Another shadow aspect, the addictive quality of power. Once you taste the effectiveness of strategic thinking, it becomes intoxicating. Tommy began with clear objectives, but as he succeeded, the game itself became the point. Winning became more important than what winning was supposed to provide.
Maintain clear consciousness about why you're developing these capabilities. What's the point of strategic power in your life? Keep that purpose alive and visible, or the pursuit of power becomes its own prison. Finally, there's the exhaustion of perpetual control. Strategic thinking is mentally demanding. Tommy's drinking, his recklessness, his periodic breakdowns, these were the cost of never relaxing. The sustainable approach requires building in genuine rest, not strategic rest where you're still positioning, but actual rest where you stop trying to control outcomes. The final truth: power as self-mastery. Underneath all of Tommy's strategic principles is one foundational truth. His power came from mastering himself before trying to master situations. What made Tommy actually dangerous wasn't his capacity for violence, or his intelligence, or his resources. What made him formidable was his absolute control over his own responses, his own emotions, his own impulses. In any situation, the person who controls themselves controls the situation. Watch him in situations designed to provoke reaction. The natural response would be immediate, emotional, reactive. But Tommy sits with it, feels it, then responds from strategy rather than emotion. That gap between stimulus and response is where all his power lived. This is the ultimate doing less principle. You're not reacting to everything. You're not being played by your own emotions. You're maintaining sovereignty over your own responses, which means you're maintaining sovereignty over your own life. Tommy knew exactly what could be used against him: his family, his past, his trauma. Because he knew these vulnerabilities, he could protect them. He could see when someone was trying to manipulate him through them. He could feel the emotional response and choose not to act on it. The path to Tommy's level of strategic capability starts with this self-mastery. Not controlling others, but controlling yourself. Not manipulating situations, but managing your own responses. Not accumulating external power, but developing internal sovereignty. Tommy's character shows us that the appearance of effortless power comes from tremendous internal work. The stillness you see is achieved through mastering internal chaos. The calculated responses come from processing intense emotions. The strategic patience emerges from overcoming impulsive drives. This is the doing less paradox at its deepest level. You're doing less externally because you've done the massive internal work of self-mastery. Conclusion: the choice before you. You can close this video and go back to the frantic pace, the reactive patterns, the exhausting performance of productivity that accomplishes little. Or you can begin the uncomfortable work of transformation. This transformation won't happen overnight. Tommy didn't develop his capabilities in a day, but every journey begins with a single shift in awareness, and that shift can happen right now. The shift is this: recognize that most of what you're doing doesn't matter. That truth is uncomfortable but liberating. If most of what you're doing doesn't matter, you can stop doing it. And when you focus on what actually matters, everything changes. You'll face resistance. Your own psychology will rebel. Others will resist your new boundaries. The culture will pressure you back into reactive patterns. This is where most people give up. But if you persist, you'll reach a tipping point where the new patterns become natural. You'll see opportunities others miss because they're too busy to observe. You'll have energy they lack because you're not wasting it. You'll build what they can't because you're thinking systematically while they're reacting tactically. This is what Tommy Shelby understood. In a world of noise, Strategic silence is powerful. In a culture of reaction, strategic patience is unstoppable. In an age of oversharing, strategic revelation creates advantage. And in a culture that glorifies constant action, the discipline to do nothing until the right moment makes you untouchable. The question isn't whether these principles work. The question is whether you have the courage to apply them, whether you can tolerate the discomfort of transformation, whether you can maintain discipline when everything screams for immediate action. Tommy would tell you that most people can't, that real transformation is rare because it requires the willingness to be uncomfortable for as long as it takes. But he'd also tell you that the few who actually do this work become unstoppable. They operate in a different league. They play a different game. And they win while everyone else is still trying to figure out what happened. If this exploration resonated with you, hit the like button to share this wisdom with others trapped in reactive living. Subscribe to join our community where we explore the psychology of power and strategy. Share this with someone who needs to understand that their worth isn't measured by their busyness, but by their capacity to create decisive change at the perfect moment. Until we meet again, carry these insights forward, that in a world of constant motion, your strategic stillness is revolutionary. That power comes not from controlling everything, but from mastering yourself. And that sometimes the most unstoppable thing you can do is absolutely nothing until the moment reveals itself with perfect clarity. Remember what Tommy knew in his bones. In a world that celebrates the loudest voice, be the calculated silence. In a culture that rewards the most activity, be the strategic stillness. In an age that demands immediate response, be the patient force that moves when timing is perfect. This is how you become not just successful, but unstoppable. By order of the Peaky Blinders.